You can leave the hustle behind. And not because you don't want to actively get things done and do a whole lot, but because you realize you're only human. It's impossible to do everything. And as the saying goes, you can do anything you want. However, you can't do everything. So keeping everything simple, let's talk about that. Welcome back to the Keeping Everything Simple podcast. I'm your host and fellow student, Michael Klukas, and on this show, we boil down complicated topics into simple and actionable tips. Now, the reason why I'm thinking about this idea of doing less so that way you can actually dedicate more mental power and energy towards the things that matter to you so you can actually do more in the parts that count, is just because when I'm balancing out things like going back to university right now and trying to get a leg up in my career, as well as finding time throughout the day to train the new hire at work and still make sure that I'm doing my job while still making sure that I'm coming home and having enough time and mental energy to cook dinner, to be a present husband, to be a good host when we have friends over. There's just a lot. And this is something that I think we all struggle with, is just understanding that there's so many things that we want to do, but we can't do everything, and we certainly can't do everything well if we try to really push it. So the first thing that comes to mind here is the idea of the grind set and burnout, where the reason why these two would go hand in hand, because it's just a constant use of energy, a constant use of, I have to get this done, I have to do this, I have to make sure that I am on time, that I am saying yes to everything. But then you're constantly using energy, you're constantly giving, and you're not taking time to replenish yourself and actually do the things that make you feel better, that fill your cup before you try to fill everyone else's. And in the same vein, then these misguided efforts can lead to a big time suck where you may have dedicated days, weeks, months towards things that don't really matter to you. And I have to emphasize it that way because if you're on your own, you're single, then yeah, it's nice to be able to say, okay, this is important enough that I'm going to step out of it or step back from a bunch of other things and focus on this. But when in a marriage or when you're in a relationship, it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I am not giving up all my time and not being able to dedicate time towards my partner and towards fostering a much healthier and better relationship over time. But the main reason why this is such a big thing is that every season of life does not need to be a grind. Every season of life does not need to be, quote unquote, the hustle, because you need periods of rest. You need seasons of rest. And so in doing less to do more, you have to understand the correlation between grinding all the time, 24/7, that's all you think about, and burnout, where you don't have the energy, you don't have the mental capacity, you don't have the motivation to actively continue to put forth any effort towards the things that matter to you, things that you're excited about. So we have to keep that in mind first and foremost if we want to actively do more, but do more in the right way. And real quick, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you are finding any value on this, if you watch this on YouTube, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you know every time that we upload a new episode. It really does help us out so much, and I greatly appreciate it. If you're listening to us on Spotify or a podcast app, then make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and give us a follow. That way you know, again, every time I upload a new episode. And it just stokes my ego just a little bit more. But with that, let's jump right back into the podcast. Because the next question becomes, who are you trying to impress? There's a lot of things that we do, either intentionally or unintentionally, just for the sake of impressing someone else. Now, I asked the question, who do you want to impress? And it's something that you should think about in a variety of different ways. Like the first one is, are you trying to impress your enemies? And I say enemies where we have all heard, I imagine, at least at some point online, my haters are my motivators, or some variation of it, whether it was through a meme, it was through a video, it was through a post that someone made. But it's just seeing that people that want you to fail, they're your source of motivation, because you're like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to do my best, and there's nothing they can do to stop me. So that's one option. But then it could also be, are you trying to impress the actual whole internet? Are you trying to say, all right, look at me, I'm so great, I can do this? And this is a trap that I've fallen into every now and again, where I'm like, oh, you know, it'd be great to have millions of subscribers and make a whole like career and living off of the internet. And while that's still part of my goals to like have a career from the internet, I need to make sure that I'm not doing this only to impress people on the internet, but I want to actually do things that help, that actually make someone's life a little bit better, a little bit more simple, so they can make progress one step at a time. But ultimately, you got to still understand, is it the internet that you're trying to impress, or that you're doing something to improve upon and build upon? And then there's the final one that I think is most important is, are you trying to impress yourself? What's your internal versus external locus of control? Where do you fall in that category? Now, if you haven't heard it before, a locus of control is essentially how you take responsibility. So they use the example of like the mailman, someone or some delivery man, someone who was supposed to deliver a bunch of packages. You had two versions. You have one who had an external locus of control, and one had an internal locus. The external locus of the control, there was a snowstorm, there was rain, there was wind, but they pushed through as many houses as they could, and they weren't able to complete the route. So when they came back, told their boss was like, well, what happened? And that person, that delivery man, said, well, I wasn't able to keep up my pace. I was trying to maintain a good amount of deliveries, but it's just I wasn't able to do it because of XYZ, but I'm going to do XYZ tomorrow. I'm going to wear better clothes. I'm going to prep a bit earlier. I'm going to pre-plan my route. They're making decisions based off of what they can do. That's the internal locus of control. Now, the external locus of control says same exact factors. They have delivery route, but there's the rain, there's snow, there's wind. They come back and say, yeah, I wasn't able to do it because the weather was just too bad. The road was too slippery, and it was just everything was working against me. That's an external locus of control because it's external factors that are determining that person's success, what that person can do. So when you're trying to figure out who you are trying to impress, understand, is it an external locus? Is it something outside of what you actively can control? Or is it internal locus where you can say, okay, no, this is something I can do. Another example is like Ali Abdaal. He will talk about not having a view count goal, but having like a posting goal originally before he had like done a kind of career shift after a couple of years, where it was never about, I'm going to reach this many subscribers, I'm going to get this many views, because he can't control that. Instead, it was a matter of, I'm going to post this many videos, I'm going to write this many scripts, things that were within his control. So ask yourself, who are you trying to impress? And if you're trying to do less, so that way, again, you can do more, why is it important for you? Real quick, if you are enjoying this episode, then you might also enjoy our weekly newsletter, the Keeping Everything Simple newsletter. Yes, there is a very obvious naming scheme going on here, but that's besides the point. If you want to get an inside look into how some of the lessons and stories I talk about play out in my life, then the weekly newsletter would be a great way to dive deeper into that, as well as getting resources and recommendations for books, articles, other YouTube videos that will give you greater insight into some of these complicated topics and how we're going to be able to boil them down more and more together. Subscribe down below in the link in description to the Keeping Everything Simple newsletter, and I will see you in your inbox. All right, let's get back to the podcast. And it's important to remember that saying no means you can say yes where it counts. Because, again, there's so many things that we all want to do. There's so many things that I want to do, that I know you want to do, but we can't do it all, which is annoying. I understand that, trust me. But we have to understand that, for one, no is a complete sentence. When we say no to an opportunity, that in itself is a complete sentence. We don't have to give a reason. We don't necessarily have to defend our position, but we can say no and have that be understood as I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, whatever it is, but just know that no itself is a complete sentence. And this helps because decision fatigue is real. And when you say no to things that don't fill your cup, don't fill your passion, then you're actually saving energy to say yes to the things that actually matter to you. Because at the end of the day, if you've noticed in the past, where you wake up, it's so easy to make a bunch of different decisions in the morning where you're just kind of going through. It's like, well, what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? What am I going to do today? What do I have to get done at work today? What projects do I want to focus on? How do I want to focus on this? And there's just a lot of different decisions. You're making hundreds of decisions every single day, as small as they might be. And when you get to the end of the day, you're like, I don't even know what I want to eat for dinner. I don't even know what time I want to go to bed. I don't even know, XYZ. because we have fatigued our brain from making so many decisions. And that's why it's so important to understand the power of no, so that way you're not making as many decisions. So when you get to the time that's your free time, you can say yes to the things that matter to you, the things that, again, fill your cup, fill you up, so you can do things that matter in a way that you get to go deep into them. And a super easy way that I found to really understand this is what's being dropped to preserve something else. I explained in the past how during my wedding planning with my wife, I was still trying to do everything. I was still trying to do the gym like 5 days a week. I was still trying to film this podcast to be full-length episodes. I was still trying to write a newsletter. I was still trying so many things and recognizing that, hey, I have to pull back. I have to not do this stuff because I'm trying to preserve something important. I'm trying to preserve, one, my relationship, and two, get the foundation for my marriage set up correctly. And so the thing was, these things were still important to me. So I wasn't going to drop them 100%, be like, all right, I'm not going to do them whatsoever. It was adjusting. It was changing how I approach them. It was, all right, I'm going to go to the gym 2 days a week. And then I'm going to film podcasts that are 10-minute episodes, no longer 25, 30-minute episodes. And I'm going to actively make sure that I am home at a certain time so we can sit down, we can plan, we can eat together. And that's something that you guys have to do as well. You have to understand that if you are dropping things or adjusting them, you will automatically keep what's important to you. So understand that when you're using the power of no, your brain will naturally allocate some things after that point and hold on to what's important for you. But it's up to you to refine further what that actually means, if it's truly important or if it was just an initial knee-jerk reaction. But as you say no, you gain the energy to say yes to what matters. And you also gain the energy to refine, am I saying yes to the right thing? Because it might be yes in the moment of like, okay, yeah, I'd like to do that. However, the person you want to be, the life you want to have, and the goals you have, they might influence how you're going to say yes. It's like, okay, I can't say yes to this, but I'm actually going to hold off on it. I'm going to push it off to the side a little bit, shrink down the time allotted for it because there's something else, something bigger, something more important that I want to work on. Because in the end, doing less isn't failing. Doing less doesn't mean that you are not any more accomplished than anyone else. It just means that you are dedicating your time more directly. You have a better sense of what is worth giving your time to. So don't feel bad about saying no. Don't feel bad about trying to leave behind just the grind set and burnout, because when you are focusing on what matters, you can go so much further with dedicated effort rather than just trying to force your way along through and do a half-baked job at everything. So remember, no is a complete sentence. There's decision fatigue, the grind set and burnout go hand in hand, but ultimately you will be able to do so much more when you focus on things that count and matter to you. But with that, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you ring that notification bell and comment down below. What is important to you right now? What are you working on? If you're listening to us on Spotify or another podcast app of choice, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating. That really helps us out. Now, it helps us out so much. But in the same vein, I do greatly appreciate it because it helps share the show with other people just like you. But with that, have an amazing day, you amazing people, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Go out there and do great things.